Hey y'all, what's going on? What's happening? This your girl Tiffany here live in effect. So I came here because I want to talk about why I lost respect for both the ADOS and FBA movement. I'm going to talk about why I lost respect for both of those movements because what I see is the fact that these two movements, their agendas is to create division amongst black people in America and those in the Caribbean and the continent. That's what they're trying to do. And I see too much politics or respectability going on as well. But what I see more so is the tensions that's happening on social media. And it seems like there's no form of enlightenment or education foundation taking place. It's one thing to fight for political rights and fight for reparation or whatnot, but it's another thing when there is an unnecessary division going on, which bring in chaos. But these are the same people that say they are looking for allies. Well, where are the allies at? Because it seems like to me you're trying to bring about the separation with black people. And then they tend to attack those who identify with Pan-Africanism, or those who identify with the African part of them. They're attacking them because of the fact that these people know their history. They read up on information and they are able to connect the dots. So these individuals, because they don't identify with their African selves or have some form of self-hatred, they decide they'll try to impose that on other people. Okay. For those who don't know what the ADOS movement is American Descendant of Slavery, which was started by Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. And FBA is the Foundational Black America, which is of course ran by Tariq Nasheed. Now I'm gonna say that the FBA, they totally lost. They just they lost in the sauce, period. The ADOS, I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt in the beginning, but what I see is they're creating tension. And I have a real issue with Yvette Carnell and her commentaries. It's one thing if you don't identify with Pan-Africanism, cool, but you cannot deny our history. You can't deny our African ancestry, no matter how you try to do it. And anybody that disagree with her, she got an issue with that. So, for example, she spoke on Joy Reid. Now, I don't really watch MNBC or whatever it's called. I don't keep up with Joy Reid like that. I don't really watch the news as much. But Joy Reid is of Congo and Guyanese background. Okay. So I think her father is Guyanese and her mother is from the Congo, but she was born in America and she was born in Washington, D.C. So she can speak on her experience, what it's like for her as a black person being born here in America and dealing with the issue that she dealt with. She spoke about how she dealt with racism going to college at one point in time. So Yvette Carnell took to her account to talk about, well, how can Joy Reid talk about black experience? She don't speak on what is going on in the Congo or in Guyana. This is her. This is Yvette Carnell. She don't speak on what's going on in Guyana. She don't speak on what's going on in the Congo. So how does she get to talk about what's going on in Black America? As if this woman wasn't born here in this country. As if she wasn't raised here in America. But, these same people don't have any problem when white people start talking about our history. start telling us what we can speak on and what we can talk about in schools, these same people don't say much about it. But you have a problem with black people who you say are not American descent of slaves, right? Speak about black history if they know what they're talking about. You have an issue with that, but then you don't have an issue when any other race of people speak on black people's experience in America. I don't understand that. I don't. So after that, I just got to the point where I just said, okay, I'm losing respect for Yvette Carnell because at this point she just talking in circles. Like there is no practical solution with her. She always bringing up celebrities, which we know celebrities do not represent everybody in our community. But because it's a pop culture thing and it's popular, that's why she's talking about. But it seems like at this point there's no practical solution going on. And then she also criticized Sheila Jackson, who is the congresswoman. Okay, now she's over the HR 40. All right, the whole HR 40 bill, which was started by the late John Conyers. Okay, and also it was started by the New African People. So the New African People, the organization which Queen Mother Moore was a part of, they came up with the concept about the HR 40 bill and they sent it down to Congress. Okay, and that's how it came into existence. Now, one time you see Yvette Carnell over there discussing about it or giving her inputs, all these conferences they done had, right, so far. Now, one time you see Yvette Carnell or Antonio Moore addressing those issues. But they talk shit about people who identify with Pan-Africanism. And then Tariq Nasheed, don't get me started with him. This man supposedly had a museum, right? And now the museum is no longer around, but he's asking for more money. But he was talking about Umar Johnson, which I'm skeptical of Umar. However, it's like, how can you speak on Umar Johnson when you're doing the same thing that he's doing? But what I see is they create division and they trying to create a war with the diaspora. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to create a war. They're not trying to look for allies or trying to build up a community or anything like that. They're looking for war. They're looking for ways to try to get black people in America to stop having some type of connection with those in the African continent or those in the Caribbean. And then what kills me is the confirmation bias. Especially when it comes to the ADOS, they use a lot of confirmation bias. It's like they take they take a little bit of information from history and try to use that and validate that as a reason why black people should not be identified with African ancestry. But at the same time, if it wasn't for those African people, we would not be here where we at today. If it wasn't for those African people, we would not have the culture that we have today. And I'm talking about the African people that were enslaved here in America. If it wasn't for those people. So to say that we should not identify, should not connect with those African ancestry or try to criticize people for doing so, it's like criticizing someone who tried to connect with their biological parents. I mean, because beyond that's our biological makeup. And when you try to separate that from people, now you become no different than the people that you're talking about. So in my case, the FBA and the ADOS are no different than the white supremacy people they're talking about. They're no different because you pretty much perpetuating the same ideology as these individuals. And I understand addressing certain issues as far as like, some form of disagreements taking place. I get that you're addressing those issues, but when you go to the level or to the extent of criticizing, making fun of individuals, especially the ones that are born here and they have parents that come from other countries, that's the problem. You act like as if those individuals are not dealing with any problems of their own, or they don't deal with any form of racism themselves. If a Guyanese person or somebody from Grenada or Suriname or someone from Jamaica or somebody from Cameroon and they here in America, they're not going to get a lot of special treatments. Do you think that they're going to be at the same level as white people? No. Because at the end of the day, white folks going to make sure they stay on top. They're not going to let these people, they might get an opportunity to work at certain places, but they're not going to get the opportunity to be on the same level. No. So if you think racism is only applied to black people here in America, then you got another thought coming. Because racism does not just apply to black people in this country. It is a global thing. Okay? It's a global thing. It's globally. But let them tell it. It's not. And as far as reparation goes, we got to understand that slavery was an international business. It was not a United States of America business. It was international. Okay? It was an international commodity. All right? It was not just a United States of America business. So, what happened in America, in South America, in the Caribbean, it's all connected. It's all connected, whether you believe it or not. It's all connected. And as much as you try to deny about the amount of African that we have in us, we still connected to that 400 years later, genetically. We are still connected. Now, you can come up with your own term, identify what you want, but you're still connected to that. But it just said that you guys that are the ADOS and FBAs try to discourage other black people and disrespect other black people who are bringing some form of unification with individuals from the diaspora. It's really sad. And it's sad that y'all have so much hate towards Pan-Africans or people who identify with black nationalism. It's sad. And then half of y'all don't really know your history. Half of y'all don't know the history. Y'all think y'all really know history about slavery, but you don't. And it's a lot more to slavery than what you know. It's way more. Let me tell you something. Slavery is way more complicated than what we thought. It's a lot more to it. It's way more to it. But it takes a person with an inquiry mind to study the information. But how can't you criticize somebody who connects with Pan-Africanism when Pan-Africanism basically tells our story, our history? And it was our ancestors who studied a lot of information who had so much scholarship, who written books based on what they researched to spread the words and spread the news to people. Yes, there are folks who are disingenuous. There are, but there are people who have great intentions. With W.E.B. Du Bois, he had good intentions. Marcus Garvey had good intentions. They didn't have all the information correct, but they had good intentions. Alexander Crummell, Mark Delaney, Henry Sylvester Williams, Dr. Eric Williams of Trinidad, Walter Rodney, George Washington Williams, Carter G. Woodson, Edward Whitman Blyden. The list goes on and on. These people didn't they didn't do this just for nothing. They didn't do it because they were just bored. They did it because they had a purpose. And they were aiming to be on the right direction. They were aiming to bring about unification. They were aiming to bring about historical information to people when it was hard to gain access to it during those time periods. So you're telling me all these things that these people have done, I should just discredit, I should just disregard, I should not even have any connection with those African roots. We got artifacts, we got historical landmarks, we got museums that tells the accurate stories of Black history, of African people. And you tell me throw all that away? Throw all that away to be a part of this politics of respectability? You saying the hell with that shit? If you're gonna say the hell with that shit, then you might as well say the hell with yourself. You might as well say hell with your great 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 grandmother, hell with your great great grandfather. You might as well say hell with your family. Ain't there's no way you gonna tell me or you gonna try to convince me that I should get rid of studying all this information over the past 12 plus years, that I should just throw it away. I should not even have no connection with the African roots because you say African people don't identify with us or African people don't consider us as being part of the family. It ain't about how they feel. And to be honest with you, there are those that do. There are those that do, and there are those that don't. Yes, there are those who don't want to be bothered, but we don't give a damn about those individuals. But those that do, you don't seem to give them credit. But we supposed to disregard history, right? We supposed to just I'm supposed to throw all that shit away and forget about that. You got me fucked up. You got me fucked up. You got me fucked up all the way. So I'm just supposed to just get rid of everything. Man, fuck that shit. Y'all crazy. Forget about how they got here. And y'all always talk about our people with sharecroppers and all that. Well, how they end up becoming sharecroppers? Who did they descend from that were sharecroppers? Let me tell you who were the sharecroppers. The African people, they were sharecroppers. So you tell me African people that came over here to this country were no sharecroppers? They weren't working on tobacco fields? Hmm? That's what you telling me. Then I had this back and forth with the individual on Twitter, or what it's called X now. So a brother posted up something. He said that he said something about the Caribbean is part of America. And I said, and I agree with him. I said the Caribbean is nothing more than islands of America. Just like Cape Verde and Sao Tome are islands of West Africa. They're still part of West Africa, but they just happen to be islands. So the same way with the Caribbean islands. They happen to be islands. They're not states. Okay? Of course, they're not part of the United States. Of course, they're not the countries in South America. Of course, they're not in Canada, but there happen to be islands in the Western Hemisphere. They happen to be islands of Americas. That's all they are. And if you want to get technical, over in the Latin region, they are considered as Central America. But see, people don't know that. People don't know that you have North America, South America, and Central America. Folks don't even know that. But here it is, people trying to create tensions with the diaspora. It's already bad enough we have violence in our community. It's already bad enough that you wake up one morning or you wake up in the afternoon, you look at the news and you see that somebody done lost their lives in Chicago somewhere, or in St. Louis, or in Atlanta, or in Detroit, or in LA. It's bad enough we got violence happening in our community. It's bad enough that we got incarceration, high incarceration rates in our community. And here you got these organizations trying to perpetuate more wars amongst Black people. Yeah, it's on social media, but what's going to end up happening is going to become a real life situation where there's going to be chaos. Where there's other people over here trying to bring some form of unification. There's other group of people over here that's trying to bridge the gap and try to show that there is commonality that we have. But this other groups over here saying, nah, fuck them people. And why you identify with those people? Those people ain't our people. Leave those folks alone. So now you got these individuals perpetuating wars, unnecessary chaos. And that's a problem. That's a major problem. But you telling me that, oh, those Caribbean folks, they don't like you. Those African people, they don't like you. But guess what? We don't like each other. You don't want to talk about how we don't like each other in our own neighborhoods. And we get mad at each other on some petty ass shit. Y'all don't want to talk about how we beefing because of what side of town you from or what gang you affiliated with. Or because you come from a upper class and or lower class community. Y'all don't want to talk about the classism. Oh, y'all don't want to have that conversation, right? Y'all don't want to have a conversation about upper class and lower class Black folks and how they don't really deal with each other, right? It's happening in Atlanta. It's happening in Atlanta where you got these upper class black people or black people that's in the upper middle class. They got this condescending attitude towards black people in the lower class. And if you think I'm lying, you can ask the people that's out here. They will tell you. People don't want to talk about the classism, right? They don't want to talk about that. You don't want to talk about how other black folks in middle class and upper class make a mockery of the lower class people, those from the inner city, using the lingos, try to imitate their mannerism, but at the same time talk about how much they don't like these individuals, how much they hate them, all this, that, and the other. But at the same time, you're trying to imitate. See, but nobody wants to have that conversation either. But our people here in America so quick to say, oh, those Caribbeans don't like us, those African people don't like us. But you don't like yourself. You don't like each other. Hell, let somebody be from, you got people from up north making fun of people from the south. Oh, don't like southern people. For example, New York. You got people from New York that criticize the shit out of the people in the south. New York, Cleveland, people from Detroit, Philadelphia. Although I would like to go to Philly, but let's just be honest. Let's put it in that category. Those people from those regions, in particularly, they make fun of people from the South. They talk down so bad about people from the South. And it's historical information that could explain how the people from up north felt when black people migrated into those cities. The black northerners told those black southerners, pretty much don't bring that southern shit up here. Don't bring that southern bullshit. We pretty conservative up here. We don't do that shit that y'all do in the South. Don't bring that up here. Don't make us look bad. I can go on and on about how we black people in America discriminate against each other all day, every day. But it's easy to point the finger at someone else. Not saying that there isn't any form of discrimination from others, because it is. Yes, you got house Negroes that are Caribbean, house Negroes that are African. But I'm trying to understand, how do you create allies? How do you create allies if you're going to despise them at the same time? And getting back to Yvette Carnell, when she spoke about Joy Reid being Congolese and Guyanese background, she said, well, she need to talk about the Congo and Guyana and leave black history here alone in America. As if she doesn't know what it's like to be black in America. As if she never had a black experience. Her parents, her family wasn't no sharecroppers. Well, how do you know? How do you know? Do you know her descendants? How do you know that she didn't have any families that were sharecroppers here in America? And oh, for the record, there were slaves in Guyana. Yeah. I'm talking about during the transatlantic slave trade. Yeah. There were slaves in Guyana. And there were slaves that came from the Congos as well. As a matter of fact, one of the first slaves that were brought here to America or to the Atlantic came from Angola, Congo area. Because remember, the Spanish and the Portuguese, they were the first Europeans that went over there to Africa and gathered up slaves before the British and the French and all the rest of them. And one of the first Africans they conquered were those that were from the Congo and Angola area. So besides the fact that we have a lot of Nigerian ancestry, we also got a lot of Congo ancestry as well, or Congolese ancestry. We got a lot of that in us. If you want to be honest, Congolese and the Angolan ancestry. Take a look at the Gullah Geechee people, for example, in South Carolina, all the way from, from the North Carolina region all the way down to Florida, because that's where the Gullah Geechee community, they on the peninsula from Wilmington, North Carolina, all the way down to Jacksonville, Florida. If you look at the descendant, it's mostly Congo and Angolan. Yeah. Or if you go back to look at New Orleans history, right, Louisiana, it was a lot of people that was from the Congo and from Angola that were slaves, along with those from Senegal and Mali area. But for the most part, they were Angolan and Congolese people that were brought into Louisiana. You don't believe me? Go look up the history about the Congo Square. That was named after the Congolese people. Or look up the history about the prison, the Angola prison. What you think the Angola prison named after? The Angolan people who were slaves. Because the Angola prison was a slave plantation at once upon a time. The same prison that Lil Boosie was locked up at. Yeah, that prison. It was a slave plantation. Then it became a prison later on. And then the question that people ask, and I'm not gonna be long winded, but the question they ask, what part of Africa? It's 54 countries in Africa. Well, duh. Well, what part of Africa you talking about? Central West Africa. And of course, our ancestors did not come from just one region of Africa. They came from multiple places. Okay. So that's why we became what you call Creole Africans, right? Because of the fact that we are a descendant of those who are multiple tribes or multiple ethnic groups. So, like I said about the Congo and the Angolan people, right? The Congo people, they come from those regions. All right. You got the Mende people that come from I think they come from Ghana, if I'm not mistaken. The Iwe people, Ghana, right? The Akan, which is part of the Ashanti tribe. The Fulani people came up out of Senegal, Guinea, the Ivory Coast area. The Hausa people came up out of that region. The Wolof people came up out of Senegal and Gambia area. The Yoruba Igbo people came up out of Nigeria. And the list goes on. It goes on. It's a long list. So when the white folks went over there and grabbed them black folks, they weren't thinking about what tribe they came from. They knew that, but they didn't care. They said, grab all of them. Bring their behinds on board. Grab as many as you can. They didn't care. So when they brought them over here, it was no longer about what tribe you came from. All that was thrown out the window. It's like, now you are niggers. You are slaves. You are Negroes. And those African people, they realize, well, damn, we are. We no longer, I mean, we're no longer part of our country. We're not in our country no more. So the reality hit them like, damn, we basically in their eyes, we're nothing more than niggas. So they combined their culture to create what we call today the African diaspora culture. So these multiple tribes came together and created something. That's why you got hoodoo, right? That's how you end up with what else? That's how you end up with certain dishes. You end up with certain dances because of the fact that these tribes combined their cultural elements together to create something so they could leave behind a legacy for their future generation. They end up marrying one another. It was the reality that they were no longer in a native land. They were no longer in Central Africa. They were no longer in West Africa. And I can go so far as say that we got some Bantu in us. We got some Bantu. I can go as far as saying that because the Bantu expansion. I mean, it's a lot that goes into this. So you telling me after all the years that I have studied on Black history and African history, I should just throw that shit away because it doesn't matter? You got me fucked up. I should just not identify with that because those people don't see us as a part of them or because certain individuals don't like us. No, you got me fucked up. Oh, I shouldn't go to this country over here because we're not a part of their land or whatever. Those people can't determine our biology because some of those individuals don't even know their own history because they've been colonized. So due to colonialism, they don't know a lot about slave history themselves. But you say, wait, don't identify with those people. Leave those people alone. Those people don't like us. And then it's so sad that you got some Caribbeans saying, oh, we don't like those Black Americans anyhow. And I hate that term Black American, to be honest with you. I really hate it. I hate it with a passion. I hate it with a passion. Because again, we gotta erase the African part just so we can feel comfortable. Hmm. But then you got, yeah, but you have some Caribbeans say, well, we don't like those Black people here in America. We don't like those Black people. And you got some Africans saying, we don't like those Black people either. We don't like those niggas over there anyhow. And it's just sad. It's really sad and it's really hurtful. It's really hurtful. You know what I'm saying? That we have to be so separated when we should be able to sit down at a table or whenever we see each other, we should be able to have a conversation. We shouldn't even be so much focused on the fact that we're in different parts of the world. We should focus on the commonality. You know what I'm saying? It's really sad. It's really, really sad. And what's even more sad is the lack of quality and values that our people have. That's what's even more sad. That we do not value our history enough. We do not protect it. We do not preserve what was created by our ancestors for us. We don't value that. Um, and yes, I'm going to get into a topic one day about why I feel that African spirituality should be sacred, meaning that it should be something that is practical within the African diaspora community and not any other community. I'm going to explain that. I'm gonna make a video about that because I really want to give my thoughts on it. And those that are initiating to African spirituality, they will understand where I'm coming from. They'll understand my position. Because what I'm starting to see, and I'm not saying everybody's doing it, but I'm starting to see that certain individuals are making commercialism out of African spirituality. And I personally don't like that. I don't think that's right because it's not something that should be commercialized. That's something that should be sacred within our community. You know what I'm saying? Because our ancestors, they fought so hard. I mean, they fought so hard to maintain what was left of them, to maintain that aspect of them when they were not allowed to practice that out in the open, when they were punished for practicing their tribal tradition. These people, they fought so hard to maintain the spiritual culture of their ancestors. And to commercialize it, in my opinion, I just don't think it's right. But again, I'm going to say that for another video. I talked on here long enough, but that's why I don't respect the FBA and the ADOS. I try to be compassionate about it. I try to be more compassionate with the ADOS. The FBA, no go. No go. But the ADOS, I try to have a little compassion for them. But altogether, I lost respect. I lost respect because these people are very ignorant and they just don't give a fuck. And they spew confirmation bias and hate and pseudo information. And that's what I don't like. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's why I don't like I don't like that with a passion at all. But you guys have a good evening. Until next time, peace and power and elevation be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off. And make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, like the channel, etc. All right. So take it easy. All right. Thank you.